All right, today we're going to talk about building a house. What is involved in ground up construction? From the Mustang Drive video, I've gotten a lot of questions and just from friends and even in my personal life asking me, well, how do you build a house? And it's really not that complicated, but there are a number of steps, especially in the preliminary process, that are not well known. So we're going to talk through just the soft costs today, which would be everything involved in actually getting to the point where you can pull a permit, right? I don't want the video to go on for too long, so we're going to break this up. And today we're talking about soft costs. And everything starts with the lot. Now, if you aren't familiar with what I mean when I say infill lots, go watch my video on that because it quickly explains it. But we are making the assumption that these are shovel-ready infill lots with utilities in place. We are not going out and doing a major subdivision. That's a much longer conversation. These are parcels that are shovel-ready. So step number one is the lot. You need to take into consideration the context. In this specific build, the price was a big factor, but it's on a nice street, fairly flat, very well kept homes around it, the golf course is across the street. You don't want to build if the neighbors have a bunch of junk in their yard or there is some sort of negative context surrounding the lot. It's going to be very difficult to sell the home if that's the case. You want a location where the end buyer falls in love with the end product. So picking a lot in a master plan subdivision is much easier, but you still want to pay attention to what do the neighbors look like, the street, what's the context surrounding it, and then also you want to get it at a good price. Now, setbacks are also really important to take into consideration, but I want to talk about that when we're looking at the plot plan, so we'll get to that in a moment, but keep in mind that when selecting your lot, you need to know what the setbacks are and how large the structure you're going to build is going to be. So many of these items can be done at once, right? You can be working on buying the lot while also getting your plans done. So number two, we're going to go look at the plans. So you've selected your lot. From there, you need to know what you're going to build. And this is going to vary a bit from city to city, but in Pueblo County, where I'm doing all the building I'm doing, you can actually have a designer do the plans for everything above ground. So we'll touch on engineering in a moment. The foundation has to be done by an engineer, but I can pay a designer to do the plans for upstairs, and that just saves several $1,000s. So here are the plans I'm using on the Mustang Drive build, and they're not really unique. This is what I build over and over and over again, regardless whether it's in Colorado City or Pueblo West. It's some variation of a simple 3-bed, 2-bath, fairly open concept, just like this, right? And the reason for that is I know who is moving to the markets that I'm building in. I've got a buddy up in Denver who scrapes old homes on lots, infill lots, and he puts multi-million-dollar houses on those. That can work, can be very profitable. However, this would not work very well in the markets I'm in, because the markets I'm in have retiring baby boomers and first-time home buyer millennials moving there. Middle or lower middle class buyers. So I build a product that works for them. And this is a great example of that. Simple 3-bed, 2-bath ranch, just under 1,500 square foot. And not really important to go into detail on all the little pieces and parts on here, but this helps shows the general contractor what to build and gives specifications from the roof to the trusses to the windows, etc. We don't really need to hit on this. Hiring the right general contractor will allow you to not have to learn all the ins and outs, all the specifics on building a house. It allows you to be the orchestrator from behind the scenes, which as a business owner is what you really want to do. You want to get the project in motion and then put the people in place to get each one of these steps done. You don't want to be doing it yourself. So I mentioned at the beginning that many of these steps are being done simultaneously, and this is especially true with the soils report. So this is often a contingency clause in the contract that you're going to have a preliminary soils report done before closing on the land. Now, in the cost line breakdown I started with at the beginning of the video, I got that lot for $1,000, so I wasn't worried about it. But if I'm buying in Pueblo West and I'm going to pay $20,000, $25,000 for a lot, I want a preliminary soils test done. And in addition to that, the engineer that constructs or designs, I should say, the foundation is going to take their own soil sample in order to determine what sort of foundation you need for the property. So here we have the soils report on the lot in Colorado City, the Mustang Drive build. And here's the parcel number, Pueblo County. Not going to go too in-depth on this, but you can see the actual hole they dug. There's slightly expansive soil, right? And the engineer takes this information and designs the foundation because you cannot have a designer do the foundation. I can have the designer do the plans, but he can't do what's underground. I need a engineer, Atencio Engineering, to do that. So they take this, and in turn, we arrive at a foundation plan. So here are the engineering plans for Mustang Drive. The engineer took the soil sample and created this foundation specifically for this home on that specific lot. So in the last section of the video, we saw that the lot has some expansive soil. Some lots have a lot of shale. Some have severe expansive soil. So it really depends on your specific location what sort of plans, engineering plans, he will come up with. But in this case, and actually I believe she, in this case, this is detailed instruction for the general contractor on the materials to use and how exactly to build the foundation given your specific lot. So we don't need to go into detail on this. You don't need to be an expert on this. That's the point of having an engineer and the years of schooling they had. But you need to understand that you have to have this done in order to submit your plans and get your permit from the local municipality. All right, plot plan. I referenced this early in the video when I talked about selecting your lot, but this is essential to understand because I see this all the time. I've watched this happen to friends who wanted to build something and didn't quite understand what they were doing. So this is a corollary to the survey. The designer that did the actual home plans did the plot plan as well. And what this does is it takes the lot and it determines with the setbacks where is the structure going to fit on the piece of land. So let's rotate this around and zoom in and talk through this, and also how a survey plays in. Okay, so setbacks. These are set by the local municipality, and they vary from area to area. It's not going to be the same everywhere, and it's going to change a lot from market to market. So this is all public information. You should be able to find it online on the county website. But in this specific neighborhood, you're looking at 5 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet, and 25. So you cannot place your structure over this 5 foot or this 25 feet. Now, in this lot, this structure easily fits. But what if I wanted to build a duplex that was twice as wide? Let's forget for a moment that the zoning would not allow for duplex. Let's pretend it would. Let's say this was a duplex lot. Well, I still wouldn't be able to do that because it would be far too wide. It wouldn't fit on the lot. And even if it would fit on the lot, what if it was, let's say, 2 feet smaller in width than the width of the lot? Well, again, that still would not work because I would be encroaching on the setbacks. I would be over the setbacks. So how in actuality do you measure this out and know that you're placing the foundation where it's supposed to go? Well, that's where the survey comes in. I'm watching this happen with an individual I know right now. They built a house that is actually over the line and touches onto the neighbor's lot. That is going to be a huge headache for them. So you want to have a survey done, which is when someone goes to the lot and they actually stake out the four corners exactly how the lot is laid out so that the GC can come in, or whoever's doing the foundation, his subs, and ensure and measure that the foundation sits exactly on the lot where the plot plan indicates that it's supposed to sit. So plot plan and survey go together closely, and this is part of what gets submitted in order to pull your permit. Another note on this: some areas of town have lots that are so skinny that they don't actually fit a substantial structure. In fact, a lot of the B zoning lots, which are for business, there's different, B1, B2, B3, B4, but they're all meant for commercial buildings of one kind or another, and they're very skinny. You have to have a number of them side by side in order to build anything. In Pueblo West specifically, there's an area of town I'm thinking where they're all like bowling alley lots. They're very long and skinny, and you need 6, 7, 8 of them in order to build any sort of substantial structure. And this happens especially in Colorado City with single-family lots too. Many of them you need 2 or 3 side by side to build a decent-sized house. So this is very important to look into and understand ahead of time, right, before buying your lot, and why I also say you need to have an idea of the plans. You don't necessarily have to have them nailed down exactly, but you need to know the approximate width and length of your structure and make sure that it's going to fit on the lot you're buying, given the setbacks. So very, very important here, because again, this is something I've seen people go wrong with many times. The structure has to fit on the land, given not just the actual size of the lots, but the setbacks. And for example, here, it's 5 foot on each side and 15 feet total. So realistically, if there was only a total of 5 foot here and 5 foot here, it would not work. I'd have to make a smaller home. So anyways, that is a plot plan, a survey, and how it is or plays into building a home. All right, so you have the plans, your engineering's done, you have all the pieces and parts to go and pull a permit. However, you're not going to be the one that can pull a permit. This is where we need to talk about your general contractor. Again, this is something you should have already had set up. As I've mentioned several times, a lot of these steps are going on simultaneously, but this is one of the most important steps here, because if you mess this up, your project can fall apart, you can lose a lot of money, you can get yourself sued. On the flip side, if you do this right, this can be a fairly passive project where you do little more than get the house going, and then the general contractor takes it from there. So very simply, the GC is the one who has the license to actually go pull the permit and build the home. They may have all the subcontractors in-house, plumber, HVAC, electrician, or they may be just subcontracting all those roles. One way is not necessarily better than the other. I've seen it done both ways successfully, but ultimately you're not building the home, your GC is. So when you're selecting your general contractor, make sure this is someone with a good reputation who has examples of successful projects all over town. I really wouldn't go with someone brand new unless you know them personally. And ideally, along that same line of thought, if you can get a referral from a friend or business acquaintance who has used them, that's a great route to go, because again, I have seen what happens personally when you hire the wrong GC and the project falls apart. It can be a lot of headache, wasted time, wasted money, and animosity as well. So this is an important step. Last point I want to hit on is how they get paid. I have done it 2 different ways. So as you saw in the cost breakdown at the beginning of the talk today, that general contractor is just taking a set fee, right, a management fee, and he's doing a number of the sub projects himself. I think the electrical and the plumbing he does, and he makes a margin on those as well. So that's how he gets paid. I have done other projects where we just put all the costs in at cost, right? There's no markup, and then have a profit split at the end. that route can work as well. I think that needlessly gives away too much of the project to the general contractor. I do understand the idea of aligning your interests with them, but at the end of the day, if they're a reputable contractor, they should have a set fee that they take and get the job done for. So selecting your GC, the importance of this can't be overstated, but that is the last piece of the puzzle I wanted to talk about. So once you have done all the steps we talked about, your contractor can go to the, for example here, regional building department, pull the permit, and actually begin building the home. All right, we don't want to forget about the construction loan. We have to finance the build somehow. If you have cash, great. I don't think, however, that's the situation for most people. So you need to go out and get a construction loan. These are typically 9 to 12 month terms with a balloon at the end where you're paying interest only. So it functions a lot like a line of credit with a deadline. You only pay interest on what you draw. So when the general contractor does the first draw on the funds just for the foundation, let's just say it's 30 grand, you're only paying interest on what has actually been taken out from the bank. So in that case, 30 grand you're paying interest on. And then at the end of the term, the 9 or 12 months, you pay back the loan in full. So ideally you sell the home before then. Most lenders do have an extension that you pay a fee for if need be, if the project goes a little bit long. But that's generally what a construction loan looks like as far as term. Now, as far as rates and fees, this is gonna depend if you're going with a local commercial bank or a hard money lender. Very simply, the commercial bank is gonna have lower rates, but they're gonna have more stringent requirements, and they're probably gonna be a little slower. 4 to 6% is pretty typical right now, along with maybe a point to originate the loan. On the flip side of that, the hard money lenders could be much quicker. They're probably only gonna look at the numbers on the build, maybe your credit score as well, but they're also gonna charge a lot more. 8 to 10%, maybe 2.5 points is what I've seen pretty consistently for hard money lenders. So what you decide to go with really depends on the situation and the timing, but either way can work. And it's important to also have considered this and set this up ahead of time. Now, another quick note, if you're going to keep whatever it is you're building, you need your permanent mortgage already set up. Not gonna go into the details on residential lending. There's information, and this has been talked about ad nauseum all over the place, so you can find that easy enough, but make sure you have your financing set up ahead of time.